In this video, I will provide an introduction to our two main topics this semester, teaching and learning. What you can expect in this course is that we will not get to discuss everything that touches teaching and learning. So these are very broad concepts, and our focus is going to be specifically on teaching and learning in higher education. Now, that can include various delivery modes, such as online learning, hybrid learning, new accelerated formats. It could even include things like prior learning assessment, but all of them will be at the higher education level. And we'll also consider various disciplines. So I would argue that our engineering school and departments are set up very differently from our School of Nursing or some of the more clinical practice-oriented areas, and as they are different from arts and sciences. So we will discuss different disciplines, but all within the context of higher education here. And I would also ask, and also call me out if I'm not doing it, I would ask that you use the terminology teacher and learner. So the teaching profession at the higher education level can be very complex and complicated. There are different levels of the professoriate, so being a full-time tenure track professor is different from someone who might be the occasional lecturer or an instructor or adjunct faculty member. Some might also refer to a teacher in higher education as an educator or facilitator. And then, of course, there are those who are in administration who are also teaching in some way. So we are going to stick to the term teacher for this semester. I think that will help simplify things as well. And on the other side, I ask that you use the term learner for anyone who might be a student, a pupil, a scholar, anyone who is engaged in the learning process. I found an interesting article that really summarized my thoughts on how to break down teaching and learning. And this is actually from an iHealth publication, and there was a focus on teaching iHealth. One of the topics was teaching and learning and what is involved in that. So this is an interesting article. If anyone would like to read the full article, I can send it to you or share it. But the idea of teaching and learning is that there are various roles a teacher will play in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So we are moving away from the idea of the sage on the stage. You may have heard this in your history course, or if you've not heard that yet, you likely will hear it. But that was the model when higher education was in its infancy. The idea was that the teacher is not only the subject matter expert, but also the expert on how students can and should learn. So the elements of the course in terms of memorization of facts and using question and answer, all of that was set by the sage on the stage. We now are moving more towards a model in higher education of the flipped classroom and the teacher as more of a facilitator and motivator. And neither approach at this point is viewed as ineffective or should be, eliminated from the classroom. But there might, for some disciplines, be a need to be the sage on the stage. I'm thinking of some of our hard sciences, for example. There are very prescribed ways to teach chemistry and anatomy and physiology, for example. But then you could see in other types of disciplines, some of the arts and sciences, philosophy is a great example. A teacher should be a facilitator and motivator more than a prescriber of the content. And then finally, a teacher is also the evaluator of learning. And it is up to the teacher to not only create assignments, but then also give feedback on those assignments and let students know how they are progressing towards those learning objectives. Now, on the learning side, we will discuss some of this throughout the course. Learning can be either formal or informal. So we often first think of learning in that formal sense of being a learner in a classroom where the teacher is at the front of the room, and it is a very passive learning example. There's also a good amount of informal learning that happens on any higher education campus, and it also happens online. It happens in office hours with the faculty member. It happens with your peers. And so learning can either be formal or informal. And it goes beyond just the content of the course to include social behavior and skills. So when you have assignments that require you to make oral presentations or require you to make PDF documents of designs for architecture, for example, all of those are skills that these learners are building over the time. Especially in the informal learning environments, a lot of social behavior is learned in things like study abroad and experiential learning, civic engagement, etc. Learning also involves various learning styles. So some people do feel more comfortable with the sage on the stage. They just want to be told what they need to know and when they need to know it. But there are others who need a more creative space. Some people enjoy group work, some people don't. So a teacher must respond to various learning styles. We will also talk about superficial versus deep learning a little bit, and intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. And learning is, of course, a lifelong process. And we want to, again, keep the focus on higher education, but look at how colleges and universities can fulfill that lifelong learning desire of the learners. And so those are the things we will cover in this course. I want to also direct your attention to the next video, which will be about the EDUCAUSE infographic, and you can find that in your modules. So I will pick up there.